Since I did a remaster of the Protags up to Go Rush, now it's time to do the rivals up to Go Rush with the 3000 attack point rivals, except for the Rush Duel ones, which are 2500 attack point ace monsters. And yes, I will be using Manjome or Chazz just because he is technically the main character throughout the whole entire series from beginning to end, and that includes the manga as well. And in the manga, he is the true main rival to Jaden, and usually when it comes to main rivals, it is both the manga and the anime is the same character. And pretty much every opening and ending pretty much shows Jaden versus Chazz more than any other character. While we got other obstacle season rivals like Kaiser, Edo, and Johan, which are just season rivals to me since they were just the main rivals to Jaden on the respective season, hence why I'm sticking with Chazz because he is throughout the whole series. But anyway, like usual, I'm going to be ranking these ace monsters by their base form design first, as base form needs to be most important, and then after that the evolved forms. So that means no Boral Dragon, unfortunately, despite that probably being supposed to be shown in the anime, and other alternate forms that recently rivals have been getting for their ultimate forms. And that also means no Armed Dragon Thunder, just because that's a retrain form, even though that would have been awesome as well. And because of the rivals of Arc 5 reasons, we're going to be counting those as alternate dimension counterpart versions of the original ones, just because those are either what ifs or alternate dimension counterparts, and pretty much every rival has it, which also makes the problem of Edo being the chosen rival rather than Chazz. But once again, since Chazz was in the manga as well as the main rival, he is going to be chosen as the actual main rival for this one, and he has the 3000 attack point ace/boss monster, which means Kaito is the main one for Sexel, because Yuma wants to be surpassing him, and that's why I chose him as the main rival. And in fact, if he didn't die, they would probably had another duel. But anyway, before we start, who's my favorite main rival? This is definitely a tough one considering that I kind of like all the main rivals, but personal favorite has to be Kaito, from a dark themed character that is actually strong to someone becoming more lighthearted over time. And Jack mainly with the Dark Signer part where he threw away his friendships but regains everything later on. And then there's Reiji, who is a badass, but it's just too bad Reiji didn't exactly do much, so I can't exactly just put him as my personal most favorite rivals now I think about it. And still a little mixed with Zuijo, but I really like Zuijo as well. But anyway, let's begin with the rankings. And remember, this is all based on my personal opinion. So on the bottom of my list, which is number 8, it will be Armed Dragon. You can put it as level 7 or level 10, but I'm going to put it as level 10, which I will admit it is pretty awesome. Especially even as level 7, it still looks pretty awesome. I really love the drill theme arms that it has since it's an armed dragon, especially the metal wing armors that it has. Of course, going from level 3 and 5, they do look like chubby armed dragons, which I personally don't really like their designs, but once it hits level 7 and 10, it just looks pretty awesome, especially when you equip level 10 in the white veil, which becomes armed dragon level 10 white. On the white veil, definitely looks pretty menacing, even if it's a light themed veil equipped onto it, which actually makes it look like it's been cultified. But unfortunately, it is the lowest one on the list just because the evolved forms definitely have none, which is why it kind of just ends up in the bottom because there's previous form version instead. And now to my number 7, DDD Armageddon. Now it is intimidating pillars coming down to bring doom or death upon you, which I do like the crystal look, especially if you put it as a necklace. Actually, it looks pretty awesome. The face design looks creepy, but in my opinion just not as cool as dragons as main aces. But the thing that kind of saves this over Armed Dragon is the evolved forms. The evolved forms actually look pretty powerful and kind of intimidating as well, especially since each of the Ultimate Doom Kings reference a villain of the past. Purplish being Night Shroud or Darkness combined with Zork, which personally I still do not like the crotch of the dragon, but having purple definitely sees hell. And then there's Whitest Armageddon with the Zone arms, which is the only Armageddon with arms, but the big ass arms actually can make it look very intimidating, especially the extra armor on it. And in my opinion, Darkness Armageddon looks like the coolest one, especially the portal look of Dawn Thousand with an emblem. It's just too bad Arc Crisis is not counted in this, but even then it would still be in this ranking just because the remaining of the list is going to be tough to rank, but it's also cooler to me. And into my number 6, it is going to be the Thraagius, which its base form design already looks pretty awesome, although physically it doesn't look as strong as Doom King or even the Armed Dragon, but still has an awesome looking design. I really like the wing design and the core designs that is on it, but it also has other variations as well, like the Metal and Mira. Mira not as cool as the original one, but Metal definitely love the cool looking armor and the black on it. But then when we evolve the Thraagius into the High Dragon, it just basically looks like an extra cool upgrade to it and kind of just evolved a bit, but still pretty awesome. And speaking of evolved form, Mira also has an evolved form that showed up in the anime, which I actually really like the design, especially the projected yellow wings and the armor design of the gauntlets. Really love it. As for Metal, it hasn't shown up in the anime, but did show up in the manga, but that doesn't count here since I'm going by anime. And then if we fuse Thraagius with 7 roads, we get the 7 Geas, which looks pretty awesome with the extra magical armor on it. But unfortunately, when it comes to Geas, the other rival ace monsters are actually cooler than him. And now to my number 5, it's Voyver Recreum, a demon dragon looking alien, and color design definitely looks awesome. I also like the weapon design along with that head design with the mask on, which makes it look like a night theme. Although not as cool as Thraagius, still very awesome, but what really saves it is really the evolved forms, like Geo Machina, which looks absurdly awesome with the double-sided weapon and the cool wing design with the armor. Just one of my favorite cool evolved forms that showed up in Rush Duels. And then when we fuse it with Phaser's ace being the Neptune, it gets to Chaos Machina, which definitely looks awesome. With the cool chaos looking wings and the cool looking sword and the black armor on it, and in my opinion definitely cooler than Giganto Machina. And then there's Voyver Machina, which personally I don't exactly like this design other than the cool dual weapon and the color scheme, but it's basically an insect-like version of Recreum. But then when we combine it with the dark matter stuff, we got Dark Matter Recreum. Definitely looks awesome, especially with the dark matter orbs around him. Although the wing design not really my personal favorite, I do like the flaming part of the dark matter. But then when we evolve Recreum into Omega, even cooler with a now orb looking shield and even stronger looking wings. And once again, I really love the orbs, especially this one on the chest. In a way, Omega definitely looks more like a knight than anything, which is probably what Zuijo is supposed to look like. And into the last of the dark matter contact fusions, we got the Forbidden Recreum, which I really love the color scheme and the side, but I personally do not like the wing design despite the cool looking flames on it. This one doesn't look as strong as the other Requiems, and to me this shouldn't really be the final form of Recreum. But there's even more when we fuse it with Udius, which there are 2 of them, the first one being Transumvelinic, which basically just looks like Rhynic wearing Recreum as an armor. I do like the cool armor design, but personally it doesn't really work for me. What does work for me is the Chaos Oblivion, where it's basically half Galactica and half Recreum, which just looks awesome, especially the color scheme kind of actually gives that match. I love the dual sworded blades, and especially the wing design, one side being more blue and the other side being more purple. That looks more like a cape wing, which just looks awesome. With the mix of the head design of basically Oblivion wearing more Recreum armor. So overall, one of my cooler ace monster design when it comes to rivals, but it doesn't look as powerful as the remaining rivals of the list. And now to number 4, Boral Dragon. Base form design definitely looks awesome. A dragon with turret guns, very honky and beefy with its cool energy wing design. And there's also battle variations as well, if you actually count them, with Boral Sword and Boral Guard. Sword of course has a sword on its head, with more yellow bladed energy wings, which does look pretty awesome, although I still prefer the design of regular Borreload, with Boral Guard having cool looking energy wings, although design wise probably not as cool as Borreload, but I do like the Gatling gun theme when it came to Boral Guard. But then when we go to other variations of summoning modes, so first off we got the Boral Savage Dragon, which is always an awesome monster to be summoned, although the design wise very bulky armor, which definitely of course makes it look like an upgrade. I would like to say that the armor does look way too heavy, but I do like the white color scheme, and especially the energy wing upgrade here looks really awesome. But then when we go to X-Charge Dragon, now X-Charge Dragon when it comes to design wise of the other summoning methods, definitely my favorite one, since this one definitely looks like a cool upgrade, especially with the red wings and the cool weaponry that it has. And it definitely looks like a huge upgrade even though it's not as buff as the other ones. But then when you go to Furious Dragon, design wise it is basically a purple barrel load with some bent horns, with the purple theme energy of course because it's fusion, but still pretty cool looking design. And of course the shoulder armor did change up a bit, but doesn't look too much different from regular Boral. So overall, cool ace monster that does have cool evolved forms, but with its appearances not really changing too much, but still all pretty awesome. And now to number 3, it's Red Dragon Archene. Red Dragon Archene, a demon looking dragon, hence the name, is very awesome, especially on its base form. In a way, it definitely looks like a dragon from the underworld. But then when we evolve them into Majestic Red Dragon or Demon Dragon or Archfiend Dragon, however you want to say it, personally I don't exactly like this design, especially since a light themed dragon combined with a demon doesn't exactly work for me. But in a way it still kind of works, especially with the feather-like wings, since it becomes more of a savior than anything. But then when he self-evolves into Red Nova Dragon, now Red Nova Dragon just looks awesome with its demon absorb power, able to fight gods, and Red Dragon Archene completely changing his appearance. Of course still a bit jet-like, but not really like you say jet-like, but still a bit jet-like, especially on the wings, but the wings definitely look awesome. With its awesome head design and the armor design, I just really love this super buff Red Dragon Archene here. But there's also the alternate dimension counterpart, which is the Scar Right, which is basically like an older version of Red Dragon Archene with a burned arm on the right, since he always uses his right arm to burn stuff, with its partially half-burned wings, with its cooler armor design I must admit, and of course the destroyed horn, which does make it look a little older, which is probably the intention here. And in my opinion, it definitely looks more like a Hellfire Dragon. But then when we evolve it into the Tyrant, not only it gets its horns back, the head design kind of changed up a bit, making the horns making it look like a crown, which definitely works for the king, and having 4 wings, which I really love the wing design here. But overall the appearance doesn't really change too much, it just really looks more like a more powerful version of Scar Right, which is the intention. But overall, it is one of the coolest rival ace monsters from base form all the way to its evolved forms. And then to number 2, it's the BlueEyed White Dragon. Now base form wise it definitely looks awesome, but in my opinion not as cool as Red Dragon Archfiend. But what really makes this higher than Red Dragon Archfiend is actually the evolved forms. They look very intimidating, I must admit. And I even like its majestic like design. Now when we start off with pre-Blue Eyes, we got Kasara, if you want to count her, from a cute looking slave girl that becomes a dragon. In which we got the Paladin as well, which is just baby Blue Eyes, but that's just whatever. Which now we can go to the Blue Eyes forms itself. Like I said, already awesome design when it comes to Blue Eyes, just not as cool as Red Dragon Archfiend. Although I do like the Dark Side Dimension version though, in which we go back to dual monsters and evolve them into the Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon, which definitely looks intimidating. A 3-headed Blue Eyes with the M on it, and 3-headed dragons are definitely scary. And then of course we can evolve them into the Dragon Rider with Dragon Master Knight, which is basically Blackluster Soldier on top of it, which doesn't really change its appearance, but it's just 2 powerful monsters just combining their attacks together. And then there's the Blue Eyes Tyrant Dragon, which is basically Blue Eyes with Tyrant Wing, or even equipped with Tyrant Wing Dragon, which in a way this could be the pre-Azerise, since design wise it does look like pre-Azerise just with the Tyrant Wings. Not as cool as the Ultimate Dragons, but still pretty awesome. And then we got Azerise, which is in the promotional material, which Azerise definitely looks awesome. Of course, once again, since it's the evolved form, it's just basically a cooler version of the base one, of course with a little more spike. But when we go to Dark Side Dimension with alternate Blue Eyes, definitely looks like a Blue Eyes from high hidden technology from the future. And of course it kind of works with Seto Kaiba, and that goes for the same with Neo Blue Eyes, which definitely looks like crazy powerful dragon with Kaiba's technology on it. But then we go to Chaos Max Dragon, which just looks like a mechanical Blue Eyes, but this one looks absurdly intimidating with dark power on it, and I really love its mechanical design. And into the ultimate form from the movie, the Deep Eyes White Dragon, which just looks absurdly majestically awesome, kind of like a star-like design, which is probably the intention here since it does kind of fly around from space, with the cool little gateway attack and the majestic looking wings, although it does look pretty skinny for Blue Eyes, but I also have to admit it does look pretty powerful. And then to the ultimate form of Pyramid of Light, it's the Blue Eyes Shining Dragon, the one monster that actually got me into the game. The Blue Eyes Shining Dragon, which can even face gods, and of course once again it is basically Blue Eyes becoming more mechanical, but I really love this design, especially with the metallic armor and the core, and it's definitely a dragon that can make a supernova. So despite the cool base form and all these awesome evolved forms, although base form not as cool as Red Dragon Archene, it is still my number 2 because my number 1 is kind of even much more cooler in my opinion. And finally, we go to the number 1 on the list, which is the last one. It's Galaxy Eyes Photon Dragon. From its cool, awesome base form design of a galaxy look, with its eyes actually looking like a galaxy, it just looks really awesome, especially with the armor design. I just love it. Now we evolve it into the angered version of Neo Galaxy Eyes, which is the start of the Neo Eyes Dragon trend. I really love the red anger aura around it. It just definitely looks like an intimidating angered dragon, especially with the other 2 heads as part of the wings, which definitely in a way can look a little intimidating as well, with a bit of upgraded armor and saber looking wings, since they are more sharp here. And then we go to the ultimate form at the time, which is the number 62, the Prime Photon Dragon, which definitely looks awesome. Galaxy Eyes true form as a number from Astro World, and it just looks awesome here with its cool awesome design of the armor and its cool looking wing design as well. And if you want to count this, you can go for Numeron Dragon as well, since it is a fused form of the 2 Galaxy Eyes. And Numeron Dragon definitely looks awesome, being a very godlike dragon, which it is a godlike dragon that can make any wishes kind of come true. But then we go to the alternate dimension counterpart of Galaxy Eyes Cypher Dragon, which definitely looks awesome, especially with the projected wings, and I definitely like the wing armor design as well. It just looks intimidating, and in a way, with the projected wings, it actually kind of looks more intimidating than the regular Photon Dragon. And then when we go to Neo Galaxy Eyes Cypher Dragon, awesome design as well. Of course, a little 3 heads, and just like the original Photon, it has its heads on the wings as well in a way, with of course a little more cooler armor and more cooler projected wings, and I really love the projected wing design here as well. Although in my opinion, not as cool as the Neo Photon, it still kind of works here since this Kaito is a little more tamed, so he's definitely not going to have a super angered version of Galaxy Eyes instead. But overall, from base form and its evolved forms, the coolest ace monster design when it comes to the rivals. And so that's it for my listing on my favorite rival ace monster designs, mainly the 3000 attack point ones other than Rush Duels. What do you guys think of it? And remember, this is all based on my opinion, so you can always have yours. So go ahead and make your rankings down below as well. But in that, this is just my list on my personal opinion on my personal favorite ace monsters. And I have to say, this is a tough list since they are all pretty awesome in their own way, but some of them definitely have their own advantages over the other, especially on how certain characters get treated. But recently we have been getting more rival type support. Even though it's not as much as Protagonist, the rivals recently have been getting a little more stuff, especially on the ultimate form department. It's just too bad that they will not be shown in anime at all, despite them probably should have it in the first place. But anyway, that's it for this, and see you all next time.